Max. Can we borrow you? Sorry. Just want to make it
Okay, so and at all kind of braggy, but it helps you understand the authenticity or not of the information to provide. As such, I was actually a student here like you, 2005, so quite a long time ago. Getting some feedback soon. Shortly after that, I was working between hospitals in epidemiology. So while I was there, here I was in the RNLI station, went to pool, we had a Atlantic 75, but it was a very quiet station. Then I studied epidemiology and international development and worked in water management in East Africa for a while. And then when Lesbos happened, I eventually was leading a lifeboat there, and then transitioned, so that was early 2016, transitioned to the central Mediterranean, where we were launching a bunch of lifeboats off a large ship of about 77 meters, I think. We managed the rescue there with a big team of about 7,500 people for a couple of years, and then managed the whole system. So was designing rescue boats, building entry criteria, building training. So I was in charge of people, equipment, and training and communication within that system for about 6 years. And now I focus exclusively on training external rescuers primarily about how to manage two problems. Huge amounts of people in the water, so about this number here, I would say you're about 120. This would be a normal boat that we'd be managing. And yeah, how do we manage this problem if only if you end up in the water like in about 5 minutes with a small rescue boat? That's the challenge we're trying to overcome. And also, how do we manage it if you all start crushing each other to death? So those are the two kind of things that we fit into other rescue systems that already exist. So that's a bit about my background. I work for an NGO called SOS Mediterranean. And thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, hi. My name is Philipp Borges. I'm part of the searching team. We are a German-based NGO, and we develop, build, and operate drones for search and rescue, especially for the civil fleet in the Mediterranean, but also at the Canary Islands, for example. Yeah, the purpose of the drones is to make the whole search operation more efficient, to shorten the time till we actually find out information about cases. Yeah, and we collaborate with a lot of the NGOs you will learn about this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Max. I'm a freelance photographer from Italy. I'm actually freelance, so I'm not representing an NGO, but I had the pleasure to join 4 missions from 2022, the end of 2022, till August of this year, and I had the pleasure to join the Ocean Viking of SOS Mediterranean and the Humanity One of SOS Humanity. I'm into migrations topic since 2015. I started to following the borders, Italian borders, so I've been interested in media, and then I started to following the southern part, and then I jumped in the vessels, in the boats, and thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Olli. I'm from Italy also, like Max, and I started to collaborate with different organizations back in 2018, also on Lesbos, Max was saying before. And I actually also, my first search and rescue vessel that I was on Atlantic 75, which was donated, I think, from Aeronali, more or less, back in the days to Lesbos to support people on the move that were traveling from Turkey to Lesbos. After that, I get more involved. I spent some time on Lampedusa. Being Italian is for me like also maybe a bit easier to understand also the struggle and the politics which are behind, the local politics that are behind and kind of shaping everything what we do. And that's where I started to be also involved in search and rescue and bigger vessel in the Central Med. And at the moment, I'm working on a vessel, with an NGO on a vessel which is called Solidar. My role is the site coordinator. Thank you for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Olive. I started in the Central Mediterranean context about 4 years ago. Started going on and off the ships a little bit as protection representative, so mainly informing people of their legal rights, supporting with vulnerability identification. For tonight, and more lately, I've been working with Sea-Watch Airborne. So this is an aerial surveillance project over the Central Mediterranean. Airborne works with our partner organisation, Humanitarian Pilots Initiative, who are kind of our aviation experts in supplying pilots for the operation. And our aim is to basically act as a bit of a civil eye to monitor human rights violations that we see on a regular basis. And obviously quite often we are supporting in situations where we observe distress cases at sea as well.
Thanks, and the last one, I guess. My name is Juan Gil, I'm from Argentina. I work for MSF, Doctors Without Borders, since 20 years. I spent the last 10 years working in armed conflicts. In 2015, after coming from Yemen, Congo, South Sudan, Iraq, very wonderful places, they told me, you can go and have a break in the Central Mediterranean. We are starting a boat. Great, a holidays. So first rescue, 15 people dead in the engine room. And so, okay, it doesn't look like a holidays. So let's give another try. Second rescue, 300 people died in our eyes with a boat capsized when we were arriving. So also it was not the best experience, but still after 10 years after that, when we are still here, we expected at that time that things were going to improve because we were in the port of Europe, a lot of resources means. We thought that we could manage to provoke a fast change, allocating resources to give the member states of the European Union the responsibility that they hold. Well, this didn't happen, and as Robin was saying, after 10 years, we are still fighting, and the situation doesn't look to be improving very soon. So we don't give up, and we are trying our best to do the best that we can do at sea to save life, but also in another level to provoke this change that we don't see it coming so soon.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So I'm very aware of the fact that we're sitting down and we're at the same level as you. I apologize now. If you really want to get a look at our beautiful faces, then you'll need to stand up every now and then. The purpose of this 3-day summit that we've been working on is this idea of one sea, one standard. What we at Atlantic Pacific want to achieve is a go-to place to get trained and to understand what the standards are for working at sea. Now, this is almost an impossible task at the moment because in the rescue world at sea, there are no standards. Currently, if you want to work in search and rescue, you would normally join an organization like we have in the UK, the RNLI, and many of us in this room are current RNLI crew or have been RNLI crew. And the way in which we became search and rescue crew was we joined the lifeboat. I did here, Max did here, our chief instructor Ella, Tom, who's in the room. Many of us joined the lifeboat as students in Atlantic College, and we got our training through the RNLI. And our competency level was signed off by the RNLI. If I wanted to move to another station, that stuff was not transferable. I would have to start again. Now, in the commercial sector, there are multiple qualifications to be able to go and work at sea. And there's a very clear pathway about how you might achieve that. If somebody wanted to become a professional sea person, then they would go through a series of steps, like any other profession. But in search and rescue, those steps don't exist. So for the NGOs that are operating out there, it's very, very difficult to recruit because they can't ask people in advance to have certain qualifications. So they're asking people to come on very basic qualifications. So there are commercial qualifications for leisure, like Royal Yachting Association Powerboat Level 2, amongst other things. And in the beginning of this situation, sort of around 7 or 8 years ago, the ships in the Mediterranean, the organizations were looking for crew, and they would ask that as a bare minimum. Now, an RYA Powerboat Level 2 teaches you how to pull your boat alongside a jetty, usually in pretty calm conditions, and how to drive it in a straight line. It does not teach you how to deal with mass casualties in the water when it is dark and the sea is 3-meter waves. So on board ships, people were going and suddenly finding themselves exposed to this incredible demand, this horrible situation based on very, very simple training. NGOs themselves then started to realize very, very quickly we need to train in-house and started training crews when they arrived ready to go on mission. It's a very difficult thing, running a ship. If you need to send a ship somewhere, there's a lot of logistics and there's a lot of planning involved, and it's very expensive. Your crews are made up quite frequently of lots of volunteers who have had to take time out of their normal schedule. So they can't come weeks in advance and get the training. They come days in advance and get their training. This situation is this. Normally, you would train and prepare and be signed off and then ready to do the work. And then after the event, you would have time to reflect, continue, retrain, continue. That's what it would look like in a normal lifeboat station. It took a year to train before you become crew on a lifeboat. Then you would be ready for a call. The situation in the Mediterranean is an ongoing call. The disaster is live, it is happening now. There are people in trouble probably at this very moment. There was no time to prepare, and there has been no time really to reflect, because the situation is ongoing. That's where we want to step in and help, and we want to work in partnership with these organizations and take some of the load off and help with that training process and recruit more people. Every organization is under-recruited, and we would like to increase the size of the pool of people available to go and do this work safely. So this 2 days has been discussing how we might achieve that, and this evening we're going to discuss some of those issues. We'll be starting with the ideas of collaboration. Now, organizations have collaborated already. I'm going to talk to my panel, and I'm going to ask them to maybe talk about some of their experiences of collaboration, where they've seen the benefits, and maybe where you would like to collaborate more, or maybe where it hasn't worked so well. So I'm not going to pick on anyone. I'm going to ask one of you to raise your hand, being willing to be the first person to talk about that subject. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, on the subject of collaboration, if I'm speaking from the Sea-Watch Airborne side, I mean, Sea-Watch Airborne exists because initially it was just rescue vessels going out and trying to do what they could do, trying to spot a distress case in a very vast area of sea. Obviously, you can only see so far with binoculars on a bridge. And it became, it was realised very quickly that actually aerial support in some form could be crucial to be able to clear a bit the area, understand if a distress case was actually near that energy could reach, for example. And it was from this idea that Sea-Watch Airborne was born to be able to offer this aerial surveillance, which also has the counter effect of monitoring violations that happen and being able to hold authorities and the EU to account. So I think, yeah, the whole idea of this project has been born from collaboration. And obviously, yeah, the relationships we have with the surface assets is also really important. Yeah, that would be from my side.
Yeah, maybe just pick up from what Olive said, and like we are facing, all of us, like different difficulties, I would say, from the Med, especially on our criminalization side. Like, so the policymaker in Europe and most broader, like maybe in the Western world, but for what concern us in Europe, is trying to make laws which are specifically targeting us to make our work more difficult, or like also more expensive, more logistically also challenging. And that's something that we are all facing in the same way. Of course, like we have different resources and we have different sizes. We have bigger ships, smaller ships. We have sailing vessels. So like there are some differences, but I think in the core of like the challenge that we're experiencing day by day, it's more or less the same. And on this topic, there is great collaboration. We have quite a good understanding of like the laws that are targeting us, and every time that a new law is coming out, a group of lawyers that collaborate also with each other is working on to try to find solutions how we can go against these laws by practice or in courts in Italy. And I think this is quite a crucial element, which is maybe not happening on the sea. It's not something that you will see in the news, but it's something that is happening maybe more in the back office, in the legal structure, in the advocacy structures of the different organizations. And yeah, this is something which is really crucial as a collaboration for all of us.
Yeah, so I can tell you, as I was telling you before, I'm in and out working in this context for 10 years. So I've seen all the ups and downs that we faced. Of course, 10 years ago, we were creating and we didn't know each other. We didn't know what we were doing, etc. So we were creating, we were copying, we were competing among each other, and more or less it was working. Then coming to the criminalization that started to happen more or less 8 years ago in 2017, but it changed the way that they were obstructing our work. At the very beginning, the first tool that they used, they started accusing us that we were colluded and in contact with the smugglers and the traffickers. So they started taking us to the penal tribunal, to the criminal tribunals. And I have to say that when the sector is not much bigger than what we see in this table, some few more organizations, but it's not a huge sector. It was quite divided, and this is not just to take the dirty clothes out of the closet, but I said because we didn't know how to react to this starting criminalization. They were taking us to the court. If somebody was saying something publicly, it was affecting the other ones. We didn't like it, so it was not the best moment ever. No, in the crisis, we realized that we were not really cohesed as we thought that we were when we were collaborating more at sea. Then the situation got stabilized a little bit, and they started obstructing us, not giving us port to disembark. No, the closed ports policy in Italy. Also, let's say we were speaking to each other, but we were not all agreeing on how to cope with these barriers that we were facing. I have to say, in the third crisis, that it was when the current Italian government took office, and they really came after us after a few weeks, or after 1 week after taking office. They started with the first measure that it was what we call the selective disembarkation. We were 3 vessels that we need to disembark, and they told us, okay, come to port, we will disembark the minors and the women and the medical cases, and the other ones, good luck, go to the high seas and find a place. And it was the first moment, the first attack of this Italian government, that all the organization, we came together and we say, okay, what do we do with this? It was not perfect. There were some people going to France, let's say it was a little bit polemic. But then after that, we started really finding synergies, among our resources. Synergies in operations. We started collaborating with each other because we realized that the obstruction was happening to everybody, not to one or the other one, to everybody. Operations, in crewing, we started also flowing, people were flowing among the different organizations. The legal strategy, nowadays I think most of us will use 2 or 3 different lawyers, so we really capitalize all the legal expertise that we are building against these obstructive measures. Logistically, I mentioned. So things are happening. Of course, it's not perfect, and there's gaps. There's many things to be done. And this initiative, that's why we are here, and we really celebrate it, because we realize that we are short in many things, including people, in numbers, and in quality. So building a base that can fit our pools to be able to react to this one, I think we welcome the initiative, we celebrate it, and we support it. And this, I think, is quite shared, and all of us will have profit, or will get something out of it. It will be a win-win for everybody. So I think the spirit, of course, is like a family. We have our own problems. We are not going to deny them. But let's say we cope, and we speak to each other. We agree to disagree. Also in our public positioning, we are different organizations, some coming from the humanitarian classical world, others were very activist. So we acknowledge that we are different, and we try to complement each other, saying what other ones cannot say, or doing what other ones cannot do. So we try to distribute the cake among each other, and I would say that in the last 2 years, despite all the barriers that we are facing, it's working quite well. There's a lot of work to be done still.
Sure.
I want to zoom all the way out because I think everyone's covered the core points. I think collaboration is actually working very well, and I wonder how we can capitalize on what's already happening and enable it. And I think I was just watching a YouTube video the other day, and there was some kid taken out by the surf on some beach somewhere. And there was a whole bunch of strangers on the beach, and they all linked hands. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. They made a long human chain right into the surf, and they managed to get the person out. And it blew me away because I operate in such a hostile environment. It feels often that we're kind of the exception rather than the rule, and that really showed me maybe the opposite's actually true, and maybe human instinct, despite war, which seems to be in there as well, unfortunately, there's a deep human instinct to help each other in these kind of problems. And I don't think we recognize that enough. I think sometimes we feel a lot like victims, and that's true, but I think we can also celebrate these moments, and I think we can also celebrate them through time as well. And really, it feels huge to be part of it, and then you look behind you and you realize, you know, someone invented the rib, and before that, someone invented the propeller, and before that, someone, you know, went to sea on a raft and made it to Australia. I mean, the collaboration is historical, and I think there's elements here that make me really proud to be a human when I see these kind of chains. And I wonder if we can sometimes view it with that positive light as well, and capitalize on those human instincts to make a link together and get people out of those shitty situations. And I think we're led to believe in a very scared way that this is not the right thing to do, but I think actually the truth is we're much more comfortable. I'm sure if someone was dying right there, we will jump on it and try to help. That's the main point. So I'm excited about where we're going. Cool.
I think it's really, really, really great to hear that there's kind of that sentiment. The kind of, I agree, and I often try to claim that I'm an optimist, and I often try to see the positive side, and I often try to think about the fact that actually humans fundamentally are good, and I think we inherently do the right thing. But I'm going to spoil the mood, right? Just as we're saying positive, because during this conversation here, there's we've touched upon a little bit here now, the criminalization issue. And I think not many people who are observing this from afar, maybe seeing it on social media or the news or something, are aware of this fact of the criminalization and the resistance and some of the stories. I mean, I should maybe tell some people of the recent story, and I'm telling it because it hasn't been broadcast on media. It hasn't been on the news. Amazingly, it may have appeared on the third page of some newspapers closer to the situation. But recently, the SOS Mediterranean ship with refugees on board, making its way, encountered a Libyan Coast Guard vessel, and the Libyan Coast Guard vessel opened fire to some of the people that were on that ship. One right here. On that ship at the time. And this was a sustained attack. 15 minutes, 20 minutes of being fired upon. Now, like the idea, if someone walked into this room, I know the reaction I would have. I'd be terrified and I'd be out of that door. Right? The idea that you're on a ship and you cannot escape, and the sound and the noise and all of these types of things, this is a major, major, major event that has happened on the borders of Europe with many people involved. And I think the highlight of the news there was, on that day, was that people were baying for Prince Andrew to have his titles removed. That was the main news, which I think he should get. Screw him. But this had happened in the Mediterranean right here. Right, that this was not being discussed. When I heard this story, it's not the first time, I know. I was amazed, expecting it to be headline news, expecting to turn on the 6 o'clock news and see it as the headline news. But we seem to have been desensitized to this kind of stuff, and it's old news. And I wonder if the panel is happy to discuss maybe, and I know we're detouring off here, but I've heard the sort of criminalization bit discussed, if maybe the panel is willing to discuss maybe their experiences or their thoughts and opinions about this criminalization.
I would like to say something before going inside this topic, because I don't know how much time we have. I can spend all the night talking about that. After these 2 days, listening more of the time, most of the time, lots of different NGOs and different roles, different parts of NGOs talking and try to discussing about operations, about methods and stuff. I confirmed a doubt that, not a doubt, a thought that I had when I started to photography in star missions. That I am here now representing the useless role in a search and rescue mission. Because thinking about being a photographer, while there's people that are trained for years and they're trained for that target to save your life, and being there thinking about, oh wow, the light is perfect right now to take pictures, and then when people are there saving life, let's feel you a little bit useless. But at the same time, I love to do this job because useless is different than necessary. And someone teach me in the first mission. There's no people in the ship that works in the ship. That is not necessary. So I was there, and I am there. I'm here for a reason. The reason to document. The reason to try to do my job in the best way as I can to document things that happened. And in August, in the 24th of August, but not just in this occasion, I think that I did just for mission. I'm saying just because I'm in front of people that have more than 10 years of experience. So every scene, every moment that I lived on my mission was lived way before, and in many, maybe also worse ways that I had the chance to testify. But in the same way, a little bit of story. The first time that I asked to join a mission was to the Aquarius in 2016, 15, I don't remember now. And it took me 8 years before someone called me for the first time to join a search and rescue mission. My role there is to document not just the activities of the rescues and what is happening in the ship, and my role is also to be there in case of even huge emergencies. And what happened in the 24th of August was one of them. Of course, no one of us will realize that actually what was happening, even when we were really close to the moment when they started to shoot at us. So yeah, more or less, I don't want to go really deep on this conversation, because I think that even that's the news didn't cover a lot, and this is a discussion that maybe we can do. The feeling for me was the frustration to see the Italian news, but not just the Italian news actually were the news that shared a lot for 2 days the news of what's happening to us. But working with newspapers, working with magazines, with journalists, stuff,
after the shooting, as comms office in the ship, we talked a lot with other journalist agencies and stuff. And when I'm not on board, I work with the main Italian agencies for news in Bologna, where I live. So I contact them. I was in contact with them just right in the moment when they when the things happened. And after a couple of days, I remember that this moment, I think it was the most frustrating moment. That one day later, after not 2 days later, and I was trying to send them some new material, some new videos that we produced on the ship, and they say that just a few words is not the main topic anymore. What you can say after that? If an European or more a Norwegian ship with European people on board, civilians get shot, but from a coast guard that is funded by the European Union and in Italy, doesn't care anymore after 2 days. There's something that we really have to think about it. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. It's fascinating, and the situation is unique. It's unusual. It's strange. I wanted to maybe pick someone else from the panel, Juan, to comment.
Don't get discouraged, Max. We need you still. We need to document what's happening. So, of course, even if the interest is not there, we need to push for it. Let's say, as I said before, we try to save lives, to bring people to safety, but we need to document because we want the situation to change. So we need to push the agenda in the media and in the public opinion. Coming to the criminalization, of course, we can speak about ourselves, no, the good people saving other people, but the real criminalization is not against us. No, we are only a mean, a resource that was put in between to try and put a cover for a while a big gap that we have. But the criminalization is happening with the people on the move. First of all, because their rights are not respected. No, they flee, as you say, seeking protection, fleeing from war, misery, poverty, climate change, etc. They arrive to the ones who arrive, and they are seeking their protection. Most of them, they receive a piece of paper that says in 7 days they need to leave the country. They don't have money, they don't have documents, they don't speak the language, so is the first neglection of their own rights that most of the people of the countries of the Italian of the European member states, they signed all the conventions that should be protecting them, and this is not respected. Number one, and number two, on top of criminalizing us with some of the cases that I mentioned already, they criminalize many people who are accused of driving these boats. No, they are seen that they are colluding with the smugglers, and all of us who were on board of the vessel, we can see them. They are coming almost naked. So of course they are not the ones making money out of this one. Normally they are re-victimized. In these 10 years, around 3,000 people were trial or cases were opened against them only in Italy. We can speak about the same thing in the eastern border of Europe, in Greece, and so on. So nobody is speaking about this criminalization. No, luckily we have some organizations in Italy who are supporting them, providing them legal assistance when we know that they are in prison, because many times we don't know. And listening to their testimonies is really horrible. People for years or months or years that they have been in prison without even contacting their families. Their family don't even know that they are alive. And they don't have access to lawyers. They are assigned lawyers by default and so on. So luckily now the network, the civil society is working to support and defend these people that they are accused in most of the cases, and all of the cases very unfairly. And then, yes, let's say we are criminalized also in most of the borders of Europe. We can speak more about the central and what is happening in Italy, but it's a little bit anecdotic for us. No, of course, nobody wants to go to the judge to explain things that they are not true. We have more than 20 people in a pre-trial, in an investigation phase, the so-called Trapani case, 20 colleagues, and then the same public prosecutor who opened the case closed it just before going to trial. So 7 years of investigation of harassment to our colleagues, and then they didn't dare to send it to the court because they did a mistake. Millions spent on this one, and this didn't stop. We don't know, many of our phones are tapped. Many of our houses, cars, offices are tapped, broken in with very mysterious situation. Voila, we keep on going because we realize that we are not the ones, the victims are other ones, and we continue working for them, and we will find the way somehow. No, we know that this is pure propaganda that is used politically. When the elections are coming, the migration dossier comes up, public interest, votes attractions, and then again the visibility comes back. So we know that even if we are accused, our names are in the newspaper, then the lights are going to be off, and we'll continue our life, but the ones who are really suffering won't have the solution or the peace that we could eventually find going back home.
Thank you. The really interesting kind of outline of the whole of the picture there, which I think maybe the sort of general public are unaware of the sort of the detail that you are just sort of revealing to us here, you know, about this really obviously this terrifying kind of process of criminalization and the kind of the treatment of people that are making this horrible journey. And I think, Olive, with the work that you do, there's here you're documenting this process and you're bearing witness to the crimes that are being done against humanity. In light of sort of like what Juan is talking about and sort of expanding upon that issue in terms of the documentation and the recording of this material, which earlier in our discussions today, we talked about what happens to that material afterwards, you know, where there is hard evidence that you have witnessed and recorded, you know, and at the moment it's hard to get anyone even to look at that material, right, or even to kind of accept it as a way of kind of like a counter argument to the situation that is taking place. I wonder if you could maybe expand on that.
Yeah, sure, and thanks, Juan, for a great answer to that, and yeah, really bringing focus on the sort of criminalisation that people on the move are facing, even after they try and flee the hell that's documented in Libya by all the different human rights organisations. Yeah, I think it kind of spins back around to the attack on the OV as well, because we were saying, yeah, that's not the first time that that's happened, not the first time that NGO vessel has been attacked, but we, as the aerial monitoring operation, witness this kind of violence against people on the move like pretty regularly, to the extent where, yeah, masked men are on board militia-type vessels that aren't even recognisable as any so-called Libyan Coast Guard, for example, who are carrying weapons, who are shooting at people, beating people. There's been situations where a so-called Libyan Coast Guard is coming in for an interception. There is no other vessel around, and the people on the distress case choose to jump into the water because they prefer that rather than being illegally intercepted back to what they know is the hell in Libya. So we have this like very, yeah, we have like a massive documentation of these cases of interception. Bear in mind that every interception is illegal under international law. You cannot reform someone back to a place where they face torture and inhumane treatment. So every time we witness an interception, we also inform the authorities via mail that this illegal act has happened. And as per their duties, they should be doing everything that they can to prevent that happening. Of course, nothing actually happens in that regard. But yeah, we have this huge database of all of these things that have happened and these human rights violations. We're lucky to have quite a strong advocacy team in Sea-Watch who work with follow-up on cases to try and take cases to a high level where hopefully some justice can be received or some court decisions pursued. And in some cases, it does work out positively, but of course, yeah, in a lot of them, there is just no outcome other than the fact that we've witnessed that. Yeah.
I had a kind of weird question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know this is a bit weird. I just wanted to double check that the people who were actually on the ship getting shot at wanted. The problem is because it hasn't been recognized as a challenge. I think a lot of people feel a bit like unvalidated. Do you know what I mean? It's one thing if you're shot at and then you come home and everyone's like, oh shit, that sucks. And then the other challenge is you come home and it's completely ignored. It must feel quite lonely. And Juan, what you said absolutely blew me away in terms of keeping the focus on the people we're trying to rescue. So I don't mean it in a weird way. I just mean it like maybe because it just happened, we're still in a bit of a process of learning from it. So I was just wondering if either of you two want to have anything you want to share here. If so, I'll give you my no. No? Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Maybe I will do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, Alex?
Sorry to break out of the mold a bit.
Alex.
I think the truth for me at least is bringing those two extremes together. Like, I mean, it is fucking horrific being shot at and like facing a world that is, mostly silent in a certain type of complicity, because we all know that like people don't drown in the Mediterranean because the sea is so dangerous. That people drown because our governments are choosing a system that is letting this happen over a system that would be able to more effectively actually rescue those people or even prevent that people need to make a journey like this in order to find safety. And then on the other end, we find like humanitarian and or activist organizations that are trying to make a difference. They are being criminalized, but also like being now sort of in line with also the people that we're trying to rescue, both humanitarians and people on the move being threatened. And there is no response to that following. There is no way that we're getting close to any sort of accountability happening. And I think I was not surprised with that, but I'm really disappointed. And it is really, it is very harmful and frustrating to realize that, yes, we sort of knew it, but now it's in our face. This is the world that we're living in. We don't have a refugee crisis, we have a solidarity crisis. And I think especially like the elaborate documentation from, amongst others, airborne operations from the last 10 years that have been showing all these evidences of all the horrible violations of human rights happening systematically, have been documented and reported, and they're following no consequences. There is an absolute impunity in this situation, and now even that we reach a next level that, for me, is disgusting, that it should even make a difference whether it's people on the move that is being targeted or a humanitarian worker. But we all know that in international like negotiations and like international community, it does make a difference normally. In this case, it did not. And I think, yeah, that's asking like quite some questions if there is any way at all that in the situation in the Mediterranean we reach a point where the narrative or the dynamic would change. It makes me a little bit almost hopeless, but it also gives me a lot of motivation to continue this work because it is needed apparently.
Okay, before we move on, I think if there's maybe an opportunity now, if there's any questions from the audience, I think we've heard a lot of stuff, and if there's any comments or thoughts or questions from the audience, we can take some now. You want the microphone?
As far
Yeah.
assistance to a boat in distress at sea, unless I put myself, my crew, and my ship exposed to unreasonable danger, right? That's the law. But actually, the most impacting factor that put myself, my ship, or my crew at risk is European policy. I don't know for you, but personally, I love it all.
Comments, questions, thoughts? Keep moving. I think this is a really immediately the conversation when discussing these kind of matters gets to this point quite quickly, where we are clear that there's a group of people that are feeling very frustrated, very distressed, very unhappy with what's going on, and somewhat in disbelief. And I think that the sort of actions of most of the people that go and work in the Mediterranean, or work on the borders, or work in this humanitarian, are people who have been compelled to go there. They've seen this in disbelief, and they've seen these tragedies unfold in disbelief, and then feel compelled to go and actually respond in that situation. And what the consequence is that in that situation, a frustration builds, and that frustration is very present. And I think is the sort of sometimes that anger, and I think that everyone should be anger. That anger is the anger that we're harnessing now to kind of try and make change and make difference. Sarah.
Listening to what you're saying, it seems sort of unbelievable that you guys can keep going. Who is it that pulls? Who are the big players that can come and pull in the grand scheme of things? Who are having such a magnificently huge impact? But who is it? Who are the big guns? It's not America. Presumably the EU isn't doing what they should be doing. So who is it that is enabling you guys to keep going? I sort of can't quite imagine that it's sustainable to carry on like this.
Sorry, the question is...
The question is, who is it that stops you guys ending up in prison? Or is it just you're fighting every single case? Or is there anybody above that can sweep down and rescue you guys every once in a while?
I mean, I think what we are in the end working in a legal framework. So like we are working in a legal framework that non-court, non-judge has demonstrated that we are on the wrong side. So what we are doing is not just a humanitarian action, but it's like we are just like following the law. Like we all know that in international waters in general, like in the sea, like there is the duty of random assistance, the duty to rescue, so that every captain of a private, of a commercial, of any kind of vessel have to comply with. So that's what we're doing. Like the boat that we see, they are severely overcrowded. Like I think it was interesting what Max was saying, more or less. This amount of people can be in one boat that is big as, maybe you've seen the pictures, which by the way, for Max, in a small boat. So that boat is a distress case. So we are, let's say, simply answering or intervening in a distress space. And to maybe go a bit more in the direction of, you talked about Europe, and of course Europe is not reacting, but Europe is not reacting because they don't have the capacity, or they don't have it's an active choice. Like it's an active choice that starts from every single country to Europe, to in general maybe the Western world. Like we are talking now about the Central Med, but there are like thousands of other, maybe not thousands, but other situation where people flee, and people have not the right to flee, which is normally like a normal right that everybody should have. So like I think what is shifting maybe also the attention, what the policymakers also are trying to do, like, is to represent a structural problem, which is migration. Like migration has been always a topic, like in history, like even if we think about the Bible, Mosè, I don't know if it's Italian. Moses divided the water, and he flee with his people, no? Like, and that's represented in the Bible, which is the most read book in the world, no? And that's quite a thing that it's seen as a no positive thing. People were fleeing from a place they couldn't live. So that's also what is happening now. So like this structural problem is not represented as it should be, but it's represented as a security problem. No, it's something that put us in danger. No, that's how it's representing. Like it put our privilege in danger. So like I think this is something that we should go back, like constantly go back. No, because in the end, what we do, like also, is in the end a drop in the ocean. No, like the people that we assist in the Central Med is really small compared to the people that leave, to the people that get intercepted, to the people that die, or to the people that get rescued from other assets. So yeah, it's somehow good to go back to the bigger picture of this. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, migration is a political dossier. This is not a humanitarian crisis, it's a crisis of humanity. You know, if we see the numbers in the last 10 years in this route, in the Central Med, more or less 1 million people arrived. If we see the European Union and Europe in general, we can estimate 700 million people. 1 million out of these ones is a small, very small proportion in a continent that is getting old. So that you need people, you need manpower if you want to take it in an instrumental way to make sustainable the societies. But it has become instrumental to as I was mentioning before, to the politicians, because they need migrants or anti-migration rhetoric to get votes, and also people like us, to say, okay, they are also the bad ones. So they will come after us, and they will change the narrative in the public opinion. But if you put this in numbers, in proportion, of course, it's very easy to solve this. It's very easy to give safe and legal channels for the people to apply for protection in their own countries or in the countries of transit. If somebody decides to take the sea, that is very dangerous, just putting a real mechanism as it was in 2014, Mare Nostrum, that was not perfect, but it was something. It was much cheaper than all the technology that they are selling, that Europe is buying and also selling to third countries to protect the borders. So we don't have these numbers. I don't have them here available, but of course it will be very cheap to manage this one. There's not a political interest. And it will continue happening. The issue, what we are committed to protect is we cannot support, we cannot neglect that the price of these policies are paying with life of people that shouldn't be at the bottom of the sea in this case, but in many other borders the same. We are speaking about the sea, but also we can speak about the Sahara Desert, or we can speak about the borders in US, also in the forest in the Balkans. Everybody's playing the same game. In Europe, the policies for management of migration are going in exactly the same direction. This year, the pact migration, that is a totally regressive policy, is being implemented. Things de facto are already happening, fast-track procedures to expulse the people before even doing an individual assessment is happening. Some countries, Greece is suspending the right to asylum, like something totally unbelievable. It was created to protect Europeans fleeing to other places. Now that the cake is turned around and we don't respect it. So of course it's totally shameful, we'll continue trying that these shameful policies don't kill many other people.
Sorry to be the annoying positive guy every now and then, but I mean, and I'm really vibing exactly almost in the inverse, but it's the same story. So within all this horror, I think sometimes it's, back to what I was saying earlier, it's like, I think it's a human instinct to do rescue. I think, how are we being enabled? Frankly, it's 10,000 euros a day to run the Ocean Viking. That's a lot of money, right? And I think RNLI budget, we're talking 270,000, something like this, probably messing that up, but I'm just talking rough figures here. And that money is coming from people in Europe. And I think we can be led to believe, to be completely overwhelmed by this negative rhetoric, which I think we use fear and hatred to control people. And I realize that a lot of elections happen with, say, 40% of the populace actually going to the polls. And in some way, yes, non-governmental NGOs, organizations, NGOs, are filling a gap where politicians and government should be taking action, right? It shouldn't be up to us to be pulling a bunch of people out of the sea, but I also think there's a value in it, in the sense that it can remain free of this political I would say, distortion of human instinct to grab power, essentially, in the sense that we can say, actually, no, we're doing this, and who's paying for this is us, and that is in itself a statement. So I look at these very scary politicians who are trying to eliminate these people and subjugate and some, dehumanize them, and I also am kind of given a lot of hope in the sense that, hey, we're still here. People are still giving us money in these very challenging times, and it's still happening. And I believe, yeah, the story is that horrible, but there's also hope.
Thank you. In international humanitarian law, I know that there are 143 million refugees in the world who have crossed the land border, and they're protected by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. And what I don't really understand is, if you cross a sea border, why there seems to be so few practical benefits for being protected by a UN organisation. And clearly this hostility against people like all of you who are doing the rescuing, I just don't get why this hasn't become a global thing that they're discussing in the UN building. In the
language, it's very direct. And every vessel that is out there, that is in the Mediterranean, reserves the right to rescue. And every organization that does this, does that within international maritime law as it's stated. I think the water becomes muddy after the rescue. There are obviously problems before and during, and there's a lot of evidence that suggests that there is a distortion or a perversion taking place somewhere in the equation, which is really disturbing, because international maritime law is clear. It's a standard that is set out, and it is observed and followed, and by law, by every seafarer. So the reserved right to go and do something about that should also be protected. So at some point when there seems to be some kind of distortion in this, or some kind of perversion, or some kind of disruption or barrier to being able to reserve yourself the right to rescue, this is when things get disturbing. But I think this is something that needs to be analyzed, and I think it's actually not the responsibility of the organizations in the process of rescue. It needs to be done separately. And at the moment, one of the things I think that is happening in the search and rescue community in the Mediterranean is that they're being asked to deal with all the issues. Now, when I was in the RNLI, I was crew on a lifeboat. I wasn't having to worry about anything else within the organization other than the job that I had at hand. And I know that many of the more established organizations, the bigger organizations, follow that kind of mechanism. But the smaller the scale of the organization and stuff, is that actually there are people on board these vessels who are doing multiple jobs and having to juggle between these things. And then somehow or another, kind of stand up for the right to do it too. And then are sometimes criticized for the work that they do. and in some cases, penalized. The active rescue, they should just be preserved, that's all they're doing. And they should be able to do it with absolute kind of complete safety. I often use this example. When I worked with the RNLI in London on the River Thames, I pulled a person out of the river, and he had a swastika tattooed on his neck. So for sure, we did not have the same politics. But for sure, I was not going to leave him there. And for sure, I knew that the RNLI had my back. And beyond that, because of the status of the RNLI in the UK, I knew that the country had my back. And I knew that I was doing a job and there would be no consequences. Whereas here, this same very active rescue is somehow weird. There's these curious things that are happening. There's confusion. There's resistance. Is this criminal? Is it not criminal? Am I within international maritime law? I'm pretty sure I am, but I'm being told that I'm in some breach here. And I think this is obscuring the active rescue. I'm going back to what Max has just said about, yeah, we inherently want to do this thing. And actually, evidence suggests that society wants this thing, and that we are all human, and that we do respect life and value it. And so, why can't we just get on and deal with it? Right? And ultimately, the kind of great sort of like blue sky version of this would be that we could solve the problem at source. Right? And that we could go in and we could change the situation of these people so that they don't have to flee in the first place. But that's a big thing. We're at the tail end of it. We're at the kind of putting the fire out moment. Right? And we should be able to do that without like prejudice. And I think ultimately people want us to do it. And I think society and humans want us to do that. And I think we are all kind of programmed to do that in a way. So these circumstances are just so disturbing because we probably on this group of people that have been here for the last 3 days are humanitarians. We do this work because we're compelled to do it. And so when it is being kind of resisted or it's being kind of disrupted, it feels so alien. Why would you not want us to rescue these people? They're clearly in distress. They're clearly desperate. Why don't you want us to do this? And that, again, I mentioned it earlier, makes us angry. And that anger sometimes comes out in maybe not the best way. But I think that, like, as I said before, I think that anger also needs to be harnessed. And I think we need to kind of, at that moment, acknowledge the anger and go, okay, how are we going to turn this anger energy into something that kind of makes us more resistant, more resilient, and more capable? I'm very aware, how are we doing on time? You want one thing? Yeah? Do you want the mic? I can bring it here.
So firstly, thank you for your honesty and what you've been talking about tonight. And it's clearly harrowing, and you're clearly feeling the effects of it when we're in a big group talking about it. Especially made worse when you're victimised over it, and especially made worse when your governments don't support you in it. But think back to what you've achieved in that 10 years. Think back to how many people are sitting at home now, eating a meal with their children, citizens of different countries, with children, thinking what you did for them on that night. So whilst it's really tough, and whilst it's never ending, and whilst there's still loads more to go, there must be 10,000 people who are thanking you for what you've done tonight over the last 10 years. So I salute you for it, and a lot of people do.
Any burning comments from our panel before we finish?
I wanted to answer the gentleman.
Yeah? one more. Brian.
First, thank you for the recognition, but honestly, we are not looking for medals. No, let's say we are happy that the beneficiaries that we serve, they are having a better life. This is the real one that we have. But I cannot skip shooting at the UN agency, so I cannot skip this question. Yeah, there are many bodies of law here. The EU refugees law, human rights law, maritime law, and if we want criminal law, international criminal law. And these agencies, they are mandated by the member state to protect the people on the move, refugees, asylum seekers, and eventually migrants. But of course, it's not a perfect system. Guess who is the main donor to UNHCR in the world? Number one, US. Second one, Italy. Member state, Italy. So then, let's say UNHCR is going to go against the donor who is giving them the funds. No, it's a political conflict of interest over there. So for sure, they are mandated, but they are not a supranational body. No? As a member state, they need to comply with the conventions that they have signed and ratified, and in this case, they are not doing, or they are not complying as they should. So also, we are not only doing rescue, we are pushing these agencies, the agencies at the member state, we are advocating for them to really do what they are mandated to do. And of course, this is nothing easy, but we don't forget that they are a stakeholder, that we need to push, we need to render accountable of what they are doing and what they are not doing. So we will never try to replace these people that they are paid to do this job.
Yeah, so it seems, I just looked at my watch and it seems we've run out of time already. This is a ongoing project. It's an ongoing issue. It's a thing that we want to work on and keep on working on. And the purpose of this 3 days is to put us together more and more and more and share our experiences and put as many minds into this situation as possible. We're here at Atlantic College, where so much of this thinking is relevant and present. This school was set up by a man who escaped from Nazi Germany. And he, with a group of other people, decided, how can we counter this? How can we overcome this? You know, this seems to come around over and over again, this terrible cycle of a rise of fascism, a rise of hatred, a rise of kind of people feeling disenfranchised and fed up. And then it explodes. And then something horrible happens. And then loads of people suffer. And then there's a period of healing, and there's a period of reflection, and there's an ambition not to do it again, and yet the cycle continues. And in it there are inherently, as Max says, probably more good people than bad. In fact, many more, I would say. But somehow or another, the bad guys get the guns, right? But this school was set up as a kind of response to that. And the founders, with Kurt Hahn leading the way, believed that probably the best way to do this is to start early in education. And using the channels of education while people are young, they're energetic, their minds are functioning probably better than they ever will in their lives again. Unfortunately, I can say to the young people in this room, your brain is not going to get better. It's going to start getting worse. You're going to get less energy. This is the moment, right? And this is what the founders of this institution believed, and that actually you could challenge young people and you can get them to look at a situation in a very different way. They're yet to be cynical. right? They're yet to be jaded, and there lies kind of an ambition and an attitude to make change and to do something differently. This is the first of 18 schools, right? And that's very close to the mission of this school, bringing people, regardless of their background, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their financial status, all of these things, put them together, right? Let them have fun together, let them be challenged together, let them come up with solutions by themselves, and they will achieve incredible things, like this boat behind us. And it gives me hope when I work with the students here at Atlantic College. It gives me hope when I'm in a room with people like this. It gives me hope when people will give up 3 days of their time to come and sit in meeting after meeting and discussion after discussion and fight and campaign to try and do this better, to be more resilient, and to have a sustained effort in doing this work. It's more critical, it feels at the moment more critical now than ever. But, you know, hearing Max's words, hearing everybody on this panel, everybody that has been with us, I'm feeling more hope than I've ever felt about it. Because even though we're angry and bitter with certain situations, even though we are disturbed and overwhelmed by it, we are united. And we do agree. We are on the same side. And we have to remind ourselves sometimes of that. But we also have to act upon that. We have to do something about it. And so I urge anybody in this room, particularly the students from AC that are in here, to think about this and to contemplate what your role is and what can you do. I would like to thank everybody on the panel. I would like to thank everybody that's been here for 3 days, and I would like to thank everybody that has come this evening to listen to this. We could probably talk all day. We have been talking all day for the last 2 days. We will continue to talk tomorrow, but we will also continue to talk after. So I would like everybody in the room to put their hands together for team here this evening. I hope it was of interest to you. You can find out more. You can also buy merchandise. And so, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
That like we saw a lot of the students, and it was really amazing to have them with us, and I think I can talk for everybody of us. And that's yeah, first of all, thank you for that, and like it's incredible like the energy that you put in, and also like when we were discussing things at the table, it's really inspiring to see how much people in 15, 16, 17 years old are interested about these topics, and I think there is a lot of hope also in humanity, thanks to you. So yeah, just thank you.
More or less.
Where you can go take action to deliver those.
That's one of the paths. I want to thank
That would be my critique. I would give it
Yeah, I ripped it up once.
Now we're getting back together. A little bit like the situation of organizations, 8 to 9, making these steps.